was born in the palace, I'm told."
"These court poets,"
said Udo with an air of unconcern,
"flatter one, of course."
If he expected a compliment, he was disappointed.
"There I cannot judge,"
said Belvane.
"until I know your Royal Highness better."
She looked at him out of the corner of her eyes.
"Is your Royal Highness very dashing?"
Well, one... that is to say—"
He waded on uncomfortably, feeling less dashing every moment. He should have realized at once that it was an impossible question to answer.
"Your Royal Highness,"
said Belvane modestly,
"must not be too dashing with us poor Euralians."
For the fourth time Udo explained that he had come there to speak to her severely, and that Belvane seemed to have mistaken his purpose.
"Oh, forgive me, Prince Udo,"
she begged.
"I quite thought that you had come out to commune soul to soul with a fellow lover of the beautiful."
"No,"
said Udo.
"Not exactly."
"Then what is it?"
she cried, clasping her hands eagerly together.
"I know it will be something exciting."
Udo stood up. He felt that he could be more severe a little farther off. He moved a few yards away, and then turned round towards her, resting his elbow on the sundial.
"Countess,"
he began sternly,
10 days ago, as I was starting on my journey hither, I was suddenly—"
"Just a moment,"
said Belvane, whispering eagerly to herself rather than to him, and she jumped up with a cushion from the seat where she was sitting, and ran across and arranged it under his elbow.
"He would have been so uncomfortable,"
she murmured, and she hurried back to her seat again and sat down and gazed at him, with her elbows on her knees and her chin resting on her hands.
"Now go on telling me," she said breathlessly.
Udo opened his mouth with the obvious intention of obeying her, but no words came. He seemed to have lost the thread of his argument. He felt a perfect fool, stuck up there with his elbow on a cushion, just as if he were addressing a public meeting. He looked at his elbow as if he expected to find a glass of water there ready, and Belvane divined his look, and made a movement as if she were about to get it for him. It would be just like her. He flung the cushion from him.
"Oh, mind my roses!" cried
Belvane, and came down angrily to her. Belvane looked at him with wide, innocent eyes.
You... oh, don't look like that!"
"Like that?"
said Belvane, looking like it again.
"Don't do it!"
shouted Udo, and he turned and kicked the cushion down the flagged path.
"Stop it!"
Belvane stopped it.
"Do you know,"
she said,
"I'm rather frightened of you when you're angry with me."
"I am angry. Very, very angry. Excessively annoyed."
"I thought you were,"
she sighed.
"And you know very well why."
She nodded her head at him.
"It's my dreadful temper,"
she said.
"I do such thoughtless things when I lose my temper."
She sighed again and looked meekly at the ground.
Well, you shouldn't,"
said Udo weakly.
"It was the slight to my sex that made me so angry. I couldn't bear to think that we women couldn't rule ourselves for such a short time, and that a man had to be called in to help us."
She looked up at him shyly.
"Of course, I didn't know then what the man was going to be like, but now that I know—"
Suddenly she held her arms out to him beseechingly.
"Stay with us, Prince Udo, and help us. Men are so wise, so brave, so generous. They know nothing of the little petty feelings of revenge that women indulge."
"Really, Countess, of course there is a good deal in what you say, and
Won't you sit down again, Prince Udo?"
Udo sat down next to her.
"And now,"
said Belvane,
"let's talk it over comfortably, as friends should."
"Of course,"
began Udo.
"I quite see your point. You hadn't seen me. You didn't know anything about me. To you I might have been just any man.
I knew a little about you when you came here. Beneath the outward mask, I saw how brave and dignified you were. But even if I could have got you back into your proper form again, I think I should have been afraid to, because I didn't know then how generous, how forgiving you were.
It seemed to be quite decided that Udo was forgiving her. When a very beautiful woman thanks you humbly for something you have not yet given her, there is only one thing for a gentleman to do. Udo patted her hand reassuringly.
Oh, thank you, your Royal Highness.
She gave herself a little shake and jumped up.
And now, shall I show you my beautiful garden?
A garden with you in it, dear Countess, is always beautiful,
he said gallantly. And it was not bad, I think, for a man who had been living on watercress and bran mash only the day before. They wandered round the garden together. Udo was now quite certain it was going to be a nice day. It was an hour later when he came into the library. Hyacinth greeted him eagerly.
"Well?"
she said. Udo nodded his head wisely.
I have spoken to her about her conduct to me,
he said.
There will be no more trouble in that direction, I fancy. She explained her conduct to me very fully, and I have decided to overlook it this time.
"But her robberies, her plots, her conspiracy against me?"
Udo looked blankly at her for a moment, and then pulled himself together.
I am speaking to her about that this afternoon,
he said. End of chapter 16.